Good morning, YouTube. Today we're going to change the spark plugs on my Ferrari 458.
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
If you're new to the channel, my name is Dan and this is my garage, and this channel is all about the supercar ownership experience. Buying, selling, maintaining, DIY work on them, all sorts of interesting things about these cars. Today we're going to be continuing on with some DIY spark plugs in the 458. So this car has 36,000 miles, a little bit more than that. Ferrari recommends changing the spark plugs, I think at like 30,000, somewhere around there. I don't know. Anyway, it's due according to the manual, even though spark plugs are probably fine because, you know, they're using really high quality iridium or whatever spark plugs. These are actually just an NGK plug. In fact, you can see right there it says NGK, even though it's in the genuine Ferrari parts bag and came in the genuine Ferrari box, which means that it costs, you know, 4 times more than just buying the NGK plug, which you can do. You can look up the part number and just buy the NGK plug. In fact, if you're interested in that, it is the MR8BP8HJS. That is the spark plug you need. Don't order fakes. Make sure you get real stuff from real parts suppliers. Don't buy crap. Don't buy them from like Amazon or eBay. Buy them from like a real store. Speaking of car parts, I actually sell parts for these cars. So I have performance parts modifications, all sorts of fun stuff like that. I even have things like fire extinguishers and batteries. So go check out my website, normalguysupercar.com. Use the code NGS10, save 10%. In theory, this should be an easy job. Basically, all we have to do is remove these side panels, which have a bunch of Allen screws. And then once we do that, we should have pretty clean access to get to the spark plugs. We pull out the ignition coils and then remove the spark plugs, put in the new spark plugs, put back the ignition coils, and put back on the panels. Now, the catch is, if you saw our video when we were doing this on Richard's car, and we just had a minor disaster, one of the ignition coils broke. One of his ignition coils broke in half. So I'm gonna pray that that does not happen to me, and hopefully we can resolve this without any sort of issues with my car. So not that panel's off, well, down here, right down there, you can see the ignition coils. So that's the ignition coil, ignition coil, ignition coil, ignition coil. So those need to come out, and then we can actually get access to the spark plugs, which are right below those. Try not to destroy any coils. By using a screwdriver, we can disconnect the wiring harness. You push back on the yellow clip. Once you push back on the yellow clip, it allows you to depress the wire. Theoretically, the wiring harness comes out, but there it goes. So I remember with Richards, they were on there really, really tight, so I'm gonna use a plastic pry bar. See if we can get it loose. No, it needs to be a metal pry bar. These don't have too much flex. Let's see if this will work. Again, trying not to damage any of the paint on these beautiful valve covers. There. Got it. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little dielectric grease in there so that the next time this isn't such a pain in the ass. Yay, first one's out. Yeah, you can see it's in pretty darn good shape, but yeah, you know, we're just doing what the manual says. New plug, I put a little bit of dielectric grease right here on the ceramic part, and then we're gonna just put that in there. Make sure we don't cross that and tighten it up. So the service manual says to tighten them down to 11 Newton meters, which is not very tight at all. So we can't really get a torque wrench in there, we just simply don't have enough space. So I'm gonna tighten it down just snug and not crazy. So no ugga-duggas on this. We gotta go pretty reasonably soft. A little bit. Once it starts to kind of grab, that's probably about good. So again, pretty soft. And part of that is, you gotta remember, these are aluminum heads, so we really don't want that mess up the threads. All right, pull it out gently. So let's put a little dielectric grease onto the ignition coil, just a little. Prevent it from sticking next time. In you go. Reconnect our wire, and she's ready to rock and roll. On to the next one. So you can kind of use this as like a hook to grab it. That way we're not putting so much risk to the paint. Got another one. Okay, so got cylinder number 7. These ones are getting a little trickier. We gotta use a lot of swivels and stuff to get in there. Again, just tighten it really softly at first until you're certain that it's grabbed. And you can check by just pulling gently back, and if it resists, then you know it's got threads grabbing. Ignition coil back in there. Last one on this side. Dielectric grease on it. Gently screw it by hand until it gets grabbing. Put the ignition coil in. Reconnect it, and this side is all set. Nice. Let's put the panel back on. All right. And now for the other side. I was so pleased with myself because I had done it and gotten it done pretty quickly without really any sort of complications, and then I dropped a ratchet or a socket, I guess, and it fell all the way to the floor pan, not by the diffuser, like up further. So I had to take off the diffuser and part of the floor pan to get to the damn thing, which that in itself took me a good 45 minutes. 45-minute error just for dropping something. That's one of the things I absolutely hate about these Ferraris, is that you have that stupid bottom tray that's huge and so difficult to take off. I shouldn't say it's so difficult. It's just it takes a lot of time to take off. If you drop anything in the engine bay, your chance of getting it out are very low because it's just there's no space, and yeah. Anyway, it's got new spark plugs. Well, let's make sure that they work. Oh, before we do, real quick, let me show you something. So I always keep the spark plugs until after I'm all done and keep them in order. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just to kind of check on them and make sure that we know that they look fine. So just inspect the tips. And this one you can see is a little bit oily, so I may have some sort of gasket going bad. That's the only one that has any sort of significant discoloration. Like, you know, this one looks pretty typical. Everything else looks pretty normal. So you always want to inspect your spark plugs to make sure that they are in good shape. Alright, so it seems to have worked pretty well. No misfires, everything's working good. Spark plugs look reasonably good. We're gonna have to watch that one. If it looks bad the next time, then might have to take some actions, but so far it looks pretty good. As you can see, it's not a terribly difficult job. It's just kind of, you gotta have a bunch of swivels on your sockets. Have patience. And getting those ignition coils out takes a lot of effort, so you might need a pry bar, and be careful not to scratch the crap out of the valve covers. So just, you know, take your time and then don't drop anything into the engine bay. That's the big lesson there. Don't do that. It sucks. So don't forget, I'm selling parts now. Go to my website, normalguysupercar.com. Use the code NGS10. I'm hooking you up with 10% off. See if there's any parts you need. And don't forget, we're actually selling F430 conversion kits. So if you're thinking about converting your Ferrari F430 into a manual, go check that out. You can talk to me and discuss that with you and tell you about how those kits work and what you get and what you need, all that sort of stuff. So feel free to reach out to me. They're pretty awesome, an amazing kit. And if you want a manual, well, there you go. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for watching. We have tons of car stuff coming your way, including work on this 599 and taking this thing on a big road trip. So that's coming up very soon. You're going to want to stay tuned for all of that. It's going to be sweet.